Welcome to Freelance Answers, episode number 2, my daily Q&A video show / podcast where I answer a reader question. And today's question comes from Jerry Bindles. So Jerry writes in asking, I just arrived at the point where I get too many client requests to fulfill. And with this, I'm having a really hard time deciding what to do. Should I hire somebody local and thus expand my agency, outsource the work with the fear of losing quality, or raise my rate and lose existing clients? Additionally, I fear delegating to other people as I feel that they cannot deliver the same results. My question, what was your turning point from independent contractor to an agency? And why did you choose that direction? Furthermore, what were the steps you needed to take to make this transition? Okay, so Jerry, this is a great question because I was exactly at this position at one point, as you know. And it sounds like there are really 3 pathways. I would actually include 4 pathways. There's one that I think you missed. But the first is to hire people, to actually grow a proper company, a proper agency, where you have employees and you directly manage these employees. The second is to outsource or delegate the work to subcontractors. And that would mean just finding people who are talented, who you kind of bring on as independent contractors, but they're not exactly employees. You're not going to have the same latitude and level of freedom in managing them. The third option that you gave is to increase your rates and risk potentially losing clients. And that's a simple supply-demand problem, right? Where you have limited supply yourself, and then you have increased demand, so you raise your prices. And yes, you'll lose clients, but you'll end up making more money because those who want to work with you end up working with you. The fourth that I would recommend, and this is I'm not saying this is the answer, but it's another thing you could do, which I think a lot of people sometimes ignore, is you can backlog the work. One of the things I wanted to do with my own agency, and which I got to, was to have a multi-month backlog of work, because I don't want to go into each month blind. I want to know that, here's what I'll be doing 6 months from now. It's kind of like I just actually got a kind of a testimonial from one of the double freelancing client students who he says he's booked through March. And that, I think, is a really good position to be in. When you have so many signed clients that you don't need to worry about selling for, this is being recorded in August. That's, I don't know how many months. That's a lot of months, right? So those are the 4 options. Now let's talk specifically about getting to the decision point of, you running your own business, it all being you, or scaling. Scaling is one of those things that I like to say it's a little back of the napkin math can be a little misleading, I think, where you think, and you would rightfully think, well, I've got all these clients who want my company. And if I could get, let's say, 2 other people who I'm billing out at $150 an hour and I'm paying them $75 an hour, this starts to look really good, right? And that's basically the attitude I took when I decided to scale. Because I knew that there were a lot of people like me who wanted nothing to do with sales or marketing or proposal writing or management or any of that stuff. They just wanted to sit back, put on their headphones, open up a terminal, and write code. And so what I ended up doing was I got to the point where, like you, Jerry, I had too many requests. So I went to these people that I knew about, people that I had met at conferences. Almost all of them I'd never really worked with before, but I knew that they were, at least knew how to write code, which at the time was what I mistakenly thought was what all they needed, right? So I started this agency and, ended up having this arrangement where I basically said to them, I will pay you 60% of what I'm billing you out at. My 40% is for the fact that I went and sold this client. I found them. I went through the whole sales process with them. I wrote the proposal. I did all that kind of stuff. I'm also going to be the one managing the project. So I'm the main point of contact for the client. They are my client. And you won't need to deal with invoicing. You won't need to deal with any of that. All the risk is really on me. And this is something you need to think about too. all the risk is on you, because if you subcontract work out or if you hire people, you are their client, right? I mean, you could probably maybe legally write something that says your pay is contingent on me getting paid. But really, at the end of the day, I mean, your client is the client and you are their client. So if you don't get paid, you really still owe it to the people who are working for you to pay them, which again is risky. I mean, a lot of risk factors start to get introduced when you start to scale that aren't usually there to begin with. My recommendation would be don't just hire blindly. I mean, one of the things that took way too long for me to learn was the whole idea of hiring slow, firing fast. I usually did the opposite. I would hire fast and fire slow. And whether or not I'm hiring independent contractors, 1099 workers, or full-blown employees, I think the same principles need to be true. I would also typically not want to recruit the kind of people that you that could potentially work with you when you're in a pinch. So the last thing you want is to get a project like I often did, where it's a huge project, I realize I can't do it all myself, and then you scramble and try to find people to work on it with you. You should have at least a network of people, before there really is a need. And it sounds like you're at the point where you have sustained demand. So I would start looking now. Maybe you have some people, but ultimately you want to find people who can assist you. The big thing is, and this is the mistake that I made, is thinking that you can just, all you need to do is hire smart people and everything will go well. You need to start thinking about your comfort levels when it comes to managing. So if you're thinking that you can just throw somebody in front of a project and everything will go smoothly, I'm not saying that won't happen, but there's a risk that it probably won't happen, at least to the degree that you're expecting. And you already said that you're worried that people can't deliver the same quality that you do. So I would, it's more of it's a lifestyle decision, I guess. Do you want to get to the point where maybe there's a day where you're not actually doing what you do? Maybe you're just managing, you're selling, you're management now, right? You're not labor. You need to think, is that the direction you want your business to go in? And that's something that anybody needs to make that decision. Everyone who is successful will eventually make that decision. And there's not one right decision. I mean, you can conceivably be a solo operation for your entire career, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's in a lot of perspectives, that's a feature. That's a benefit. But the decision I came to was, well, I want to be able to grow a bigger company. I want to be able to grow a team. I want to work with people, and so I decided to scale. The thing that I would recommend would be not to immediately hire. Even if you've got employees already, try to always work with people professionally on a contract basis before you end up hiring them. And especially, I mean, it sounds like you have sustained demand, which to me at least means that you probably, if you can keep selling these people with the intensity that I assume you are able to sell them, then the thing you don't want to be in, the position you do not want to be in, is you have a bunch of employees that you're paying them a salary and you are unsure about where your future work is coming. And that's why I think it's so important to have a backlog. The rule of thumb that I always heard from somebody about hiring employees, at least, is to have 30% of their salary basically in the bank earmarked for them. So even if the work doesn't come in, even if those projects that are supposed to pull the trigger and that you're expecting that they'll be the ones working on it, if those projects do not materialize, you don't want to just go into it with very minimal kind of margins to play with. You want to make sure that you have the money in the bank, you have the security that you can confidently hire somebody. But I wouldn't even be thinking about hiring, to be honest, just yet. Again, the thing that I would do would be to do something like what I did, which is work out an arrangement with somebody. Start with one person and let them know, find somebody who's really talented, but is maybe a little weaker on the people side of things, who doesn't really like to sell, doesn't like to market themselves, does not like any of that, but they like the freedom and flexibility that comes with freelancing. And work out an arrangement where you're basically telling them you're going to pay them a percentage of what you're getting paid from their labor, and that the conditions will be this, this, and this. The big thing that I want to kind of mention, though, is it's really important to make sure that there's some degree of accountability baked into your relationship. Whether that be, the default that I would say is to make sure that each day they work, they send you an email with kind of a list of what they got done, what they're planning on doing next, and so on. The position you do not want to be in is where you get a call from the client and they're asking you about something and you don't have the answers. Where, the person that you subcontracted the work out to is missing in action, you haven't heard from them in a few days, and here you are on the hook, and you look really bad because you don't have answers to their questions. I would take the role of, you're still in the project, right? You're still doing the work or part of the work. You're bringing somebody else on to help you, but ultimately you're managing the project. Yes, maybe the person you're working with can be invited into client meetings or whatever else with you, but ultimately it's your thing. I wouldn't just pass through the project. You need to make sure that you're in charge of the project. You understand what's going on and so on. Eventually, though, that you can get to the point where you just can't. You don't have enough, room enough in the head to kind of manage a bunch of projects going on at once. And that's when you get to the point of maybe hiring a full-time project manager and kind of really scaling up this business, where you're at the top. You're managing the entire thing from prospecting to selling to execution, and so on. But I think early on you want to just be in the position where you're just you're working alongside somebody else, and you're kind of learning your limits, your design, what you like to do. Because again, you might not like managing. I realized really one of the things I didn't like was I don't like managing a big team, and that's what I ended up building. And it didn't really fit the lifestyle goals that I wanted. And that's why the freelancing and consulting I do nowadays, it's really just myself. Some of the projects I am working with other people, but I don't want to be in the position where I am obligated to make a six-figure payroll really ever again. So the people I'm working with now are all independent contractors. They're project-based. They're not employees. They're not salaried employees. But just to sum up things, I would start with people working for you on a contract basis. You're working alongside of them. You really make sure maybe you have a Slack channel or something where you can, you're in constant communication throughout the day. You should be setting expectations with them about, this is how I expect to be updated. This is how we're managing projects. This is how we're doing a daily check-in, something like that. And really hold them accountable to this. You should be setting expectations with your subcontractors along with your clients. There should be none of this, I don't know, he said, she said, sort of stuff that ever happens. And it will happen if you do not set the right expectations. So again, start where you're more working alongside somebody. And if you really enjoy the management side of things, if you really enjoy managing one person, add somebody else and so on. And you might get to the point where you realize, we're producing great work. We're doing, we've got clients who love the work we're doing. It's time to really scale this into a business. And that's when you get an office potentially. That's when you hire employees, you convert your contractors to employees and so on. Take it slow. I see a lot of people who rush into this, and the best advice I can give you is to take it slow and to only scale really when you need to scale, and realize that this might not be the path you want to go down, and that's fine. You can always reverse course if you'd like to, especially if they're not employees, if they're just if the people that you're working with are just around the project. So hopefully this helped. It's one of those things where a lot of people get to this position, or I don't want to say a lot of people, but a good amount of people get to this position. And the thing that I would caution anyone viewing or listening to this would be not to just don't do what I did. I opened an office before I had the clients to support an office or even the team that I needed to fill that office with, right? I did these things kind of on a whim. I hired when I remember I signed a client and I realized I needed a designer. I literally hired somebody the day before I flew out to Seattle to kick off the project. And I convinced her not only to work with me, but also to jump on a flight with me that next morning and fly out for the meeting with the client. Don't do that. Be a little more, have a little more of a plan. And again, I would start with really dip your toes in the water, and then eventually, if you want to swim, then swim, but don't dive in head first. So hopefully that helped. If you want to submit your own question, you can go to doubleyourfreelancing.com/ask, and I'll talk to you tomorrow, or I'll see you tomorrow rather, with another answer to a reader question.